In this video, we're going to take a look at standard GPE.1. It asks us to translate between the geometric description of the equation and the equation for a conic section. Derive the equation of a circle of given center and radius using the Pythagorean theorem, and complete the square to find the center and radius of a circle given by an equation. All right, so question number 1 says, what are the center and radius of the circle? So we're given this circle not in standard form, so we want to put it in standard form. So let's group the x terms together and leave a blank to complete our square. So x squared minus 24x, and then leave room to complete the square with a blank. And it's always plus that blank. Put a plus sign in the middle, then group the y terms together. So I'm going to group y squared plus 2y, and I'm going to leave room to complete the square, so I'm going to add a blank. It's always adding that blank. Then we're going to move the constant term to the opposite side. So we get 38 minus 27 would be 11. Then we want to add the two numbers to the right that we're going to be adding to the left here in a minute. So you want to take half of the middle term and square it. So half of negative 24 is negative 12, but when you square negative 12, you get 144. So what you add to the left, you want to make sure to add to the right. Half of our middle term would be half of 2, which is 1. 1 squared gives us 1. So what we add to the left, we also have to add to the right. Now we can rewrite this in standard form for our circle, and that allows us to easily pick out the center and the radius. So you always want to take x, the same sign, and then half of that b value to write your binomial squared. So x minus half of 24, which is 12. The same thing for the y, so y plus, it's always the same sign, then half of 2 is 1, so y plus 1 squared. Then add together what's on the other side, so 11 plus 144 plus 1 will give us 156. So now we can pick out the center. So the center of the circle is your h and your k. So you want to pick out a positive 12 and a negative 1. You want to change the signs of those. So I can see over here 12 negative 1 gives me two options for the answer now. Now your equation is always, let me scoot this down and write this right here. The standard form of a circle is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared is equal to r squared. So it's important to remember, like in the center, that's your h and your k. So since they're always subtracted, you want to change the sign when you pick them out. So negative 12 became a positive 12. Positive 1 became a negative 1. And then the radius squared is equal to the 156 that we got. So you want to say if that is equal to r squared, then the radius would be to take the square root of 156. So then that definitely goes with answer choice D, not B, which was left. All right, let's look at number 2. The equation of circle P is x squared plus 10x plus y squared minus 26y minus 62 equals 0. Circle Q has the same center as circle P and has a radius of 14 units. Which choice is the equation of circle Q? So I would use a similar process to what we just did in number 1. Let's group the x's together and leave room to complete the square. Always put a plus sign in between the parentheses. Then group the y terms, so y squared minus 26y, and then leave room to complete the square. Move the 62 over, so I'm going to have to add it to move it to the other side since it's subtracting. So I get 62, and I've got to add that to the other side. So then to complete the square, we take half of the middle term, so half of 10 is 5. And then square that, and we get 25. Then half of the middle term again, so half of negative 26 is negative 13, but negative 13 squared is 169. So add that to the left and the right. But we are only interested in the center of this circle, so we don't have to do as much work this time. So let's rewrite it. Remember, you always take x, the same sign, and half of b. So x plus half of 10 is 5. And then y minus half of 26 is 13. And that helps us quickly get to the center, which will be -5 and +13. Remember to change those signs. And they told us that it had the same center, so that's really all we need from that equation. We don't need to finish the radius out because it told us we have a radius of 14 in our new circle. So now let's write out the new equation we need. So we're going to write x plus 5 squared plus y minus 13 squared equals the radius squared, so 14 squared. And so we know 14 would not work because that's just the radius. We need to square it. And then we have x plus 5 and y minus 13, so A would not work either. It had to be B. All right, let's look at question number 3. The endpoints of a diameter of a circle are -8, -12, and -10, -4. What is the equation of the circle? So knowing the endpoints of a diameter of our circle, so I'm just going to sketch this even though this does not look like they're going to be in the right spot. It just helps to visualize what we need to do quickly. So again, these are not located in the right spot, and I'm aware of that. But what I need to do is figure out the center of these 2 points. So to get to the center of them, you want the midpoint of those 2 points. And the midpoint is to take the average of your 2 points, so you can quickly average them up. I'm going to take -8 plus -10, which are my x values. I'm going to say -8 plus -10 divided by 2. So that's -18 divided by 2, which gives me -9. That's the average of my 2 points for the x. So that's the x of my center, or the h we call it. Let's do the same thing for the y values. So -12 plus -4 divided by 2. We just got to average them up. So -12 plus -4 is -16 divided by 2 gives us -8. So we've got our center point is -9, -8. So we know it needs to be x plus 9, y plus 8. X plus 9, y plus 8. So B and D are now not an option. And then we need to figure out the radius. So what we can do to figure out the radius is we can do a little better sketch here. So if I go to one of my endpoints of my diameter, then let's say -10, let's start with -10, -4, and I'm just going to put the endpoint of my diameter. And now I know my center point is at -9, -8. So let's say -9 be about right there. The -8 would be about right there. So they're real close together vertically, or like horizontally, I should say. Then I'm going to create a little right triangle. And I know if that's -10 and that's -9, and they translate down to this side of my triangle, then the side of my little triangle down there would just have a length of 1. And then I know between 4 and -8 is how far this side would be. So it has a length of 4. Because even though they're negative, the distance between -4 and -8 is 4. But what I really want to know is the radius of this circle. Because we're saying this is the radius from the center, which this was the center, or no, take that back. This was the center of the circle, and this is an end point of the diameter. So we know the radius falls in between those two things. So let's do 1 squared plus 4 squared equals r squared, because that would be the Pythagorean theorem to help us figure out our hypotenuse. So 1 plus 16 equals r squared. And we know that the equation of a circle, remember, is always x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals the radius squared. So 17 should be our radius squared, not 289. So C would be our best choice. Let's look at number 4. What is the area of the circle with the equation x squared plus y squared minus 22x plus 28y plus 253 equals 0? So in order to figure out the area of a circle, we need pi r squared. So we need to know the radius of this circle. We don't need the center point, really just need the radius. So let's do what we normally do. Group the x terms together and leave room to complete the square. Group the y terms together and leave room to complete the square. Move the constant term, so we need to subtract it. And we need to add the two numbers to the right that we're adding to the left. So half of 22, or half of negative 22, I should say, is negative 11. But when you square any number, you get a positive number. So that'll be 121 when we square negative 11. And then half of 28 is 14. And then 14 squared is 196. So then all we need to know is the radius, because that is what is going to help us out to figure out our area. So when we add all of that together, we get 64. And that's equal to r squared. So we need to take the square root of that. Or actually, I take that back. You see how over here in your formula you have r squared? So you can actually leave r squared equals 64 alone and just bring it over here and plug it in to figure out the area now. So the area of the circle would be pi times r squared, which is 64, which goes with answer choice D. All right, so that is it for this standard.